Hey everyone, it's Irene Lyon here. Welcome. Welcome to another Q&A call for our 2023 registration for SmartBody SmartMind. SmartBody SmartMind. This is my 12-week online curriculum that my team and I run usually just once a year. And now is the time to register and enroll, learn what this is all about, how it can help you, why this really is for many people the missing link around all sorts of things, from chronic illness to mental illness, addictions, sleep troubles, digestive troubles, relationship troubles, our work, our motivation, the resistance that we have to do things, all sorts of things. So if you're listening to this after we close registration on the 21st of February, 2023, please know that there's still a lot of stuff that you can do with me and my team through our resources, through our other courses, through our classes. So do not go too far if you are seeing this afterwards. For those who are here right now, I'm going to go into the chat in a second. Maybe you're listening to the recording soon, or you're here live. I'm here to answer your questions, and I want to cover sort of an overview of what SmartBody SmartMind is, some of the features, some of the benefits, what you get as a member. So if you do have questions, please post them in the chat and I will get to them in a moment. And I'm just going to say hello to everybody here. So let me know where you are. I'm going to put my sweater on because I'm actually quite chilly. All right. So let me know where you are in the world. Let me know if you are still on the fence about this online curriculum and moving into it this year. I do have a colleague with me today, Jen Greer. Some of you have maybe seen her in drop-in classes and other classes. We just did an early and developmental call yesterday that was posted on YouTube, so to be sure to check that out. She is here answering questions. Jen, if you are here, let me know. Say hello in the chat. And the chat usually has a bit of a lag. So hello, Jen B, so not my Jen, another Jen. I'm so excited to participate in SmartBody SmartMind again. So that's a great prompt for me to let everybody know here that SmartBody SmartMind, it is a very comprehensive, robust online curriculum. It is a blend, and I'll as I go through these questions, I'll teach and speak to what this program is. It is a blend of my experience, which is in somatic experiencing, the work of Peter Levine, the work of Kathy Kane and Stephen Terrell. This is somatic practice, as well as regulation and resilience work, they would call it. This is working with early trauma, developmental trauma. And it's also a blend of a very highly sophisticated mind-body neuroplasticity form of work called the Feldenkrais method. This is named after its founder, Moshe Feldenkrais. And I am trained in that methodology. And that also is within the SmartBody SmartMind curriculum. I would say that it is this trifecta of methodologies, genius, healing, nervous system regulation, learning how to come back into our body, all the things that we want to do when we are healing, let's say trauma, somatic dysregulation, all these things. These three put together are a powerful, powerful combination. And this is why some of the stories that you hear from my students might seem a little too good to be true. Dare I say, some will say it is miraculous. But what is occurring is these individuals are really putting in the work. They're taking their time, they're committing, they're seeing this work as a lifestyle. And so as one of our comments here said, I'm excited to participate again. When you become a member, while it is a little bit of an investment upfront, it's $2,000 US to become a member, or we have a payment plan over 12 months. You have this for life. And our alumni come back and come into the live session with us over and over again. Think of it like a university or college course where you pay your tuition, but then you can come back. Obviously, this doesn't happen in university, but you would come back and you would audit the course. So you get to attend free of charge and learn again, keep asking questions again, review the material, get updates and upgrades free of charge. So we have got alumni that have been with us since, I think, like 2015, which is a handful of years, more than a handful of years. And this work has really stood the test of time. And I did a video on this a little while ago. We just reshared it on social media, and we can pop it into the chat here and also in the show more section after the call. The video is called Why SmartBody SmartMind Has Stood the Test of Time. 7 reasons I get into, but it's things like, this is not a quick fix. We are working in an online format, which actually gives you so much power and control to dip in and dip out of the work as your system requires and needs. So you can titrate, which is the fancy word for doing little bits at a time, as opposed to having to get through it all in that 12-week space. The 12-week space is there so that we are together live. You can ask questions. I teach every week. We do have 2 break weeks throughout the 12 weeks. My husband, Seth Lyon, who some of you know, we've been doing talks together the last week. He does the Q&A, and then we have a whole host of professional moderators. There are 10 whom are all, actually, I correct myself, 9 of them are all trained in somatic experiencing. This is the work of Peter Levine, and many of them have training in the Feldenkrais method, other forms of somatic healing, as well as some are psychologists and counselors, clinical counselors, psychotherapists. So we have a huge team that really are there to help answer your questions throughout the 12 weeks. So I wanted to just mention that becoming a member is not just for the 12 weeks. It is for as long as you want to continue with us and be with us. Hey there, Kathleen. Kathleen asks, I'm registered. I go into freeze throughout the day and it's ruining the quality of my life. How will SmartBody SmartMind address freeze? To be very simple and blunt, SmartBody SmartMind is all about helping you get out of freeze, get out of fight flight. It is there to restore what we would call authentic capacity, regulation back to your nervous system. So when we start to build regulation, when we start to build capacity in our body, when we start to build our capacity to be in the environment, when we start to be with our capacity to sense our feelings, our sensations, understand also intellectually, right? So again, I mentioned the methodologies that make SmartBody, SmartMind what it is. What is in the program curriculum over the 12 weeks are educational trainings. So I'm teaching you theory, really deep theory around your nervous system. All the things, the parasympathetic branches, the sympathetic branches, what the vagus nerve is, all the different branches of the vagus nerve, how it instigates freeze, how it instigates social engagement, how it instigates rest, digest. So we're getting all that education. And the practices are geared to open up your system, to slowly revitalize, regenerate this connection with ourselves in a way that is just way more intelligent. There's a reason it's called Smart Body, more smart. So SBSM addresses freeze because it's addressing the entire system and teaching you how to gain more regulation. When regulation comes on board, the freeze starts to take a back seat. And then we have it when we need it, when there is a real threat, because we want these freeze responses and we want the fight and flight responses to be there when there is a real threat. But when that threat is gone, we want to come out of these responses. And just to give a little teaching point here, this is why we have seen, and the research has showed, chronic illness, certain forms of cancer, autoimmune, neurodegenerative conditions like AS, MLS, addiction, depression, anxiety, these kind of cluster of troubles are connected to a dysregulated nervous system. They are connected to dysregulation in the system. So when we restore regulation, because a lot of people have questions, will this help with XYZ problem, with this disorder, with this trouble? Typically, the answer is yes. Of course, diet, good food, not being exposed to toxins and all those things that are in our environment. Those are important too. But what is very important in addition to this is getting this foundation built within our system. And when we have that, that's when things start to heal. All right. Great question, Kathleen. Okay, let me just go back into the chat here. Hello from Amsterdam. Hello from Hawaii. Vacationing in Hawaii, but live in Colorado. Hello, Lauren. Yeah, you just registered. I can't wait to start. You also did the 21-day. Yep. One of my smaller courses is called the 21-day nervous system tune-up. This is really an entry level into SmartBody SmartMind. You do not need to do the 21-day nervous system tune-up to do SBSM. And the reason why is SmartBody SmartMind was created first. It was created to really give a whole smorgasbord, if you will, of the things that I feel are most important for all humans to understand. I take everything that I've learned in my trainings, and the bulk of it is in this SBSM course. We created the 21-day so that if someone came across me when we weren't in active registration for SmartBody SmartMind, which is actually most of the year, they can start with the 21 days and get a kickstart, get a bit of a tune-up going. And then if you have done the 21 days, the cost of the 21-day tuition is taken off of SmartBody SmartMind. So it's really kind of a way of investing into SBSM if you've done the 21 days already. All right, I'm going to have a little water here. Hello from Portland. Christy asks, what does this program offer that your free resources don't? A lot. So the free resources are giving you basic nervous system health practices, a little bit of orienting, a little bit of connecting with the ground. This is also what I would teach in my drop-in classes that are $19 a piece, connecting to breath, learning to be with breath, not change breath, connecting again with the environment, our body, our movement, very basic nervous system health practices. What is in the SmartBody SmartMind curriculum, which is why it is an investment and it is 12 weeks with 10 modules, there are much more robust educational training videos, much more robust live calls with me where I'm doing, I call them training calls. We have 9 training calls over 10 weeks where I'm getting deeper into the theory, deeper into examples, deeper into metaphor and education. So that you will not find within my free resources. There is Q&A live with my husband and colleague, Seth. So that is live, real time with a practitioner who's highly advanced, asking him questions, getting your answers and learning in that format. And then there are in total, and this is all on our sales page website, there's about 36 neurosensory exercises that do range from orienting and following impulse all the way though to working with the stress organs. So this is really important. So listen up for all of you who might be looking at the chat right now. The difference between my free resources and even the 21 days and SBSM is we are getting into the body in a much more intricate, complex way. We're working with the stress organs. So these are the areas that are primed and under massive threat when we have old traumas and unhealed traumas and dysregulation in our system. So namely our kidney adrenals, our gut, and its connection to the brain. This is where the vagus nerve comes in, the brain stem, the layers of the body. So the skin, the fascia, the muscle, the bone. When we are under some form of trauma, whether it's a shock accident trauma or even mental abuse, verbal abuse, early trauma, our system goes into protection mode. The muscles, the tissues, they brace, they get tight, they get taut, or if left too long, our system collapses. This is what we see for folks who typically are living with things like fibromyalgia, autoimmune, chronic illness. Their system can't fight anymore. And so they have collapse, not just in their body posture, but in their physiology. And this is where we get troubles of the gut, troubles of the immune system, troubles with circulation. always being cold, having severe, for the women, premenstrual problems, menstruation problems, hormonal troubles, trouble sleeping, all these things that need good flow and oxygen and turnover so that we regenerate and repair our system. So again, this is answering what is in what is in SmartBody SmartMind that is not in the free resources. Everything that I just said, and then other things, we learn and teach you how to work with healthy aggression, how to work with anger. We teach you how to work with we would call them the diaphragms and joints of the body. It kind of aligns with the chakras and Eastern traditions. But there are levels of the body, osteopathic levels, that are, if you will, containers, not real like containers, but they're spaces in the body that hold energy, that hold emotion, that hold sensation. So the top of the head, the throat, the heart, the solar plexus, the gut, the we would call the root, where the genitals are, the perineum. We work at all of these levels through touch, through intention, through my guidance. I am teaching you in the lessons how to tune into not just being mindful, which is typical of, say, a meditation exercise or a guided awareness exercise, to specific areas in the body, specific tissues, specific chemical release patterns. All the things that I would do if I was working with someone one-on-one, if I was doing a touch session with my hands on someone and working with these old traumas, these dysregulations, these stored fight, flight, freeze responses, I am teaching you this through my voice, through audio in the lessons, how to do this yourself. This is why I call this become your own medicine, right? You're learning how to reconnect at these levels. And this is something that if we are born into a very securely attached, attuned family system where mother is connected to her body and her organs and her digestion and her immune system and her hormones and her circadian rhythms and people, and she understands when she's under stress and she takes care of herself. She understands when there's a boundary to be put up, she puts it, she protects her young. If we had that growing up, we wouldn't need to be doing this because it would just be within our system. Now, of course, the stress of the world robs that of us a little bit, but for the most part, many of us didn't get that solid, secure, attuned attachment. And so we don't have connection with our organs. Most of us don't know where our stress response signals come from, let alone how to work with them in real time and bring them down. So what SmartBody SmartMind is teaching you, what say the free resources don't, is we are in a container with the group, with support, with myself, my team, and we're moving through at your own pace, but at the same time to offer you this support, this practice, this education. So there's also many other bonuses within this program. There are movement lessons taught by my colleague and good friend Ilya Marak. He is a Tai Chi and Qigong expert, and he brings movement and very gentle, we could call it dance, but it's not your typical dance. It's moving the body, working with the body in a very intelligent way. There's original sound healing music from my husband, Seth. In addition to him being a colleague of mine and a practitioner, he's also a composer of music and sound healing music. So that is within there. There are we call them pre-game videos that talk about nutrition and exercise and all sorts of things that we want you to still be aware of. I don't teach you specifics about nutrition and exercise and this kind of thing or sleep, but we dip into it. We say, hey, this is still important. It's something to be aware of while you're going through this 12-week curriculum. Okay, I hope that answers the question, Christy. It really is light years away from the free resources. Now, there's nothing wrong with the free resources if that's where someone needs to start. But eventually, just like working with a therapist, working with a massage person, a body worker, you can only do so much self-stretching and movement on your own. Sometimes you need a little extra help and support to get you to that next level. All right, I'm going to have a little more water here and keep going on the questions. The live classes, sure. So Kristen asks if you can tell me when the live classes take place. Yeah, so bear in mind, everyone, I'm going to give you the times, but if you can't make them, please don't let that be the reason you don't join. And the reason why is there are some people who will never be able to do the live classes because they are on a completely different time zone. Our people on the southern side of the world, Australia, for example, New Zealand, even parts of Asia, they're not awake when we do these calls. And of course, some folks have jobs and kids and they just can't be there. But my training calls are on Tuesdays, always on Tuesdays at 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. Pacific. And then Seth, my husband and colleague, runs the Q&A calls on Thursdays, and he alternates between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. Pacific time. So those are the differences of the calls. We have the Q&A call at 2 different times so that there is an option there for different time zones. In terms of the calls, again, listen up, everyone, if you're looking at the chat. Everything is recorded. So everything's on Zoom. Everything is recorded in video format, obviously audio. And what we do with every single live call is we transcribe it. We don't, but a professional service does. We put that transcription on a PDF sheet. And so if you wish to read also the training calls, which some people prefer reading to listening or seeing, that is also there. All of the training calls, all of the Q&As remain on the site alive and well, and you can download everything. So you can keep everything. And then when we run another session of SmartBody SmartMind, we start again and we do another set of training calls and another set of Q&A calls. But you can download all of this stuff and have it forever. So that is when the live classes take place. All right. Getting back into the questions here. Are ADD and autism nervous system disorders? As I get deeper into this work and talk to more people who have been diagnosed with ADD, autism, and even Asperger's, for example, I just had a conversation with someone the other day about this, a good friend and someone who I've been on her podcast many times. If I think about this woman, she was diagnosed with Asperger's and I think ADD when she was quite young. As she's been going through this work, I know that she's been doing the 21-day nervous system tune-up. A lot of her mental processing problems, I say that, with air quotes, her difficulties and these, what she would call Asperger-y symptoms are diminishing and if anything, disappearing. So my sense personally, and from what I've seen in my practice, a lot of these diagnoses, because they've just been skyrocketing, we could say some of them are environmental. We know that there's been some thought that toxins in our food, specifically glyphosate, is really impacting some of these diagnoses in our younger children. It's like it's getting into our kind of in vitro, in vivo world when we're growing in mom. That is not my expertise, but I have heard that. And I believe that there's maybe a portion of that with all the toxins in our environment and what we ingest. But if I quote some of our senior book mentors and doctors like the Gabor Matés of the world, the Bruce Perrys of the world, these really high-level physicians and psychiatrists, they are ditching a lot of these lettered, labeled diagnoses because they're seeing that most of them, if not all of them, to some degree are related to some form of deep, unhealed early or developmental trauma. Now, I know there are exceptions, but there's so much that goes on in utero. There's so much that goes on in the birthing process, and there's so much that goes on in those first 5 years of life, so much that can go off and wrong that stunt or disable a person's ability to gain self-regulation through co-regulation with their primary caregiver and with the environment. Then you add in, deficiency in nutrients, exposure to toxins, and it's kind of anyone's guess what might occur as that little human being develops. You add in the school system that doesn't honor and respect a little person's need to express and move, We've seen with a lot of school children, their lack of physical activity during the day, not getting enough sunlight, makes a huge difference on their focus and attention, right? And so I think just so many factors in bombarding kids and adults that are not allowing their cells to recover and repair. So for the most part, I believe that a lot of these disorders are nervous system related, but they're also related, I think, to our rhythms with nature, our circadian biology, that kind of thing. All right, we'll have a bit more water here. Jen asks, is there anyone whom you would not recommend SmartBody SmartMind? So we answer this actually pretty robustly on the FAQ page. And by the way, if you haven't visited the FAQ page for SmartBody SmartMind, I do recommend it because there are many questions there that are answered already. But to give you a quick answer, and then I encourage you to go look at that page, if someone is not able to self-engage, and if someone has high levels of dysregulation where they are not able to feed themselves, to understand even what I'm saying here, if even just a little bit of education is too much and a person has to rest for weeks on end. If someone is in more of a severe, we could say, I don't like saying these terms because again, they're diagnoses, but in more of a sort of schizophrenic, schizophrenic or more psychosis kind of situation with their mental capacities, which as we know is driven by dysregulation in the nervous system. But let's just say someone is quite unstable and just really needs a lot of one-on-one help and reassurance. And there's nothing wrong with that. But some people need that extra in-person or one-on-one, even if it's via phone or Skype help, then SBSM alone is probably not the best bet. I will, however, say that there have people who have gone through this program who were bedbound and are no longer, who have been in severe, intense activation of their nervous system. But what they do is they go so darn slow. They do the tiniest morsel of work and then they put it away. And that takes trust. That takes respecting your body and being okay with just doing a tiny little bit of the work. So it's so varied to this person asking this question because I don't want to say to someone, you shouldn't do this. You have to feel into this on your own accord. You have to understand that you do have to go at your own pace. You are still the guide of yourself. We are here to teach you some very important information and practices. And then again, we're always encouraging people to listen to their body, to ask questions and seek support from our team. If someone can do SmartBody, SmartMind alongside working with a practitioner or a therapist or a coach or some kind of support group, then that is that is great. Right? Then that is a wonderful way to complement the work. So you do have that support. I know of some people who have actually hired coaches while they've done SmartBody, SmartMind, and often they do this as they are alumni because they say, I need accountability from someone else. And so I'm going to go through the curriculum, but I'm also going to have a little bit of a helper, an accountability buddy to keep me going. So I encourage everybody to read that FAQ page that goes a bit more deeper into that question. All right. Sharon asks, hello, I have chronic fatigue syndrome and I'm mostly bedridden. So I just spoke to this. I went through a lot of trauma in life, but specifically the past few years. Do you think the trauma, fight, flight, freeze energy is causing the chronic fatigue syndrome? Most likely, yes, Sharon. And as you said, you've had this throughout your life. And so if we've had dysregulation and stored trauma and all these things throughout our life, and then we add another big life stressor, which for many people occurred over the last 3 years. You add uncertainty, you add fear, you add not knowing what's going to happen next. And if you don't have a handle on working with these added stressors, it's just going to compound and it's just going to heighten and increase that survival energy. And then the freeze response is just going to slam back down more. And then the system is going to have even more burnout, even more lack of rest digest, even more lack of repair and regeneration. Essentially, chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, we could say autoimmune, chronic pain. We would call this kind of somatic depression of the body. And often there's also anxiety, a little bit of anxiety, what we would call fight, flight, activation on board. This is very taxing on the physical system. It doesn't allow the physical system to turn over and repair. So this is where we get pain in the muscles. This is where our digestion doesn't work properly. We're not absorbing nutrients from the healthy food we're eating. We're not sleeping well because we are so locked down in stress and threat that the system can't fully let go and go into that deep sleep. And that's where we repair. So 100%, the evidence, the research is out. We really do know that these illnesses, these disorders, we would call them syndromes in my somatic experiencing circles. These syndromal representations are a result of fight, flight, and freeze being on at the same time and for too long, for too long. And this is, my friends, everyone here, this is what humanity, for many of us, we're being plagued with, right? And we now know that we have to get into these deeper foundational levels. All right, just going to make sure I'm not missing anything. Okay, I'm going to come back here to the chat. Hey, Mary. Oh, yeah, you've just registered. Hello from Michigan. The first day of the program is technically Thursday. We start with orientation. It's the orientation call. Again, like everything is recorded. Can't make it live, then that's fine. Nikki asks, could you speak about connecting with an accountability buddy while going through the program? We do not offer that. You have to connect with people that you see on the site, and then that is up for you guys to organize. And we know of many that do that, right? So that's where you would want to engage with your peers on the forum within our site. Hello, Friends with Fairies. I love that handle name. You're in Northern Ireland and you've just signed up for SBSM. Wonderful. You did the 21-day nervous system tune-up. Welcome to the program. This is from Edita, is the name. So if SBSM, it's a lifestyle. Yes, it is. Could you please explain how do you integrate the exercises into your life, or how do you suggest doing for the students so that it would be life-changing? So I'm not sure your second question, but the integration, it kind of starts to happen naturally. And we give you clues and cues and suggestions. But if we think of something like the kidney adrenal exercises that we get into towards the middle of the program, so that is an exercise that is very intentional. I'm guiding you through it. By the time you get to the kidney adrenal exercises, you've done so much orienting. You've connected with your breathing apparatus. You're learning how to be in your body. You're learning how to follow impulse. And so when we get into, say, the kidney adrenals, and you're imagining these kidneys and adrenals shifting, softening, being less in stress, and you do this over and over again, because the lessons are meant to be done over and over again, right? Just like if you are learning a language, this is one of my favorite analogies. If you're learning a language as an adult, like a second language as an adult, so not your mother tongue, but another language, it's kind of the same way. You're going to practice, you're going to listen, you're going to read, you're going to practice some more. You're going to practice that in a different environment. So you might do the kidney adrenal lesson in the comfort of your own home. You might do it at different times of the day. You might do it when you're in the shower. Oh, I'm going to tune into my kidney adrenals now. Or while I'm cooking food, I'm going to tune into my kidney adrenals, and I'm sensing myself getting worked up, because I'm stressed, because I'm thinking about all these things. I'm just going to go into my kidney adrenals, talk to them, work with them in the way that Irene taught me on the audio. And then Maybe one day you're driving and you get a little stressed because of something. Maybe you get into an accident. And in that moment, you think, okay, I need to bring my stress response down. The threat is gone. Now I'm going to connect with my body. I'm going to connect with the environment. I'm going to ask for help, and I'm going to work with this body and feel this body. So this is how we integrate. We don't tell you every single day an exercise to integrate. We encourage and give hints and clues, but eventually, again, you have to be interested and connected with wanting to bring this into your life. When you want to bring it into your life and you start just seeing opportunities for this to happen, it does start to shift and change. Hello. Someone here said, this is my third time. So third time member. It's so helpful. It takes time and it's worth it. Everything I do now makes so much more sense. Thank you for that comment. 100%. I can't convey how many stories I've heard from our alumni where they are really saying, I can't imagine life without this information now, without these practices. I couldn't imagine parenting. I couldn't imagine working. I couldn't imagine traveling. I couldn't imagine taking care of my elderly parents without this information. I couldn't imagine connecting with my ex in dealing with, that without this information. So there is so much variety and vastness and diversity in how this information trickles out and ripples out to everything. Someone asked, is the course tax deductible? That depends on your healthcare benefits. It depends on your system. For the most part, for those who don't have a business, who might not have an employer that is giving you a benefit, like you could consider this a continuing education program course, which it is. Sometimes in instances like that, you might be able to get a deduction. Again, if you own your own business, there is a way I believe that you could write this off because it is self-care. It is continuing education for yourself. And for the business owners here who work with employees and have staff, this will change how you manage and work with your people. It will teach you how to see them in a very different light. And we've also heard this kind of feedback from folks who run businesses. Again, they're seeing everything through the lens of the nervous system, and it just makes life and working with people that much easier. Curtis asks, would you please give us an introduction and summary of the various modalities, what each does and what is each good for, why you decided the particular blend of the therapies you use? So I never really decided. These are just the things that I naturally followed my impulse into. So the Feldenkrais work I got into in my 20s because I was recovering from a real serious injury. And even with all of my training in sports science and rehab and fitness, I wasn't able to help myself, even with 12 years of education under my belt. So the Feldenkrais method was my entry point into this more mind-body neuroplasticity world. I started working with people in this realm, realized I'm still missing something. Half of my clients in my Feldenkrais practice were still not getting better, even though it had helped me. That led me to Peter Levine's work, which is really focused on working with shock trauma and dysregulation at the body level in relationship to syndromes, chronic illness, PTSD, complex PTSD, other elements that we don't get into in the program, but things like surgical and anesthesia trauma, near-death experience trauma, all these things. So I got into the Peter Levine's work and I'm like, this is a beautiful bridge with Feldenkrais. Started working in that world, then realized I'm missing another piece. And that other piece was early trauma, developmental trauma, because that stuff, that type of trauma and dysregulation is not just stored in the mind, and it's not always stored in how shall I describe this? In incomplete stress responses. It's stored at the cellular safety level in those in those organs. I just spoke about this with the organs, working at the viscera, the diaphragms. And so the work of Kathy Kane and Stephen Terrell really rounded out, if you will, my work, my practice. There's a reason why so many of my Feldenkrais colleagues went to do the SE work, went to do the work of Kathy Kane. It's because in many ways they're a perfect fit. So that's why I decided to blend them together. And then the program, it isn't like, okay, today we're going to do an SE thing, or today we're going to do a Feldenkrais thing. There are some elements of that, but the way that I teach, which I will admit is quite sophisticated and unique, brings all of them together. The base of how I teach the audio lessons and the neurosensory exercises is via and vis-a-vis my training in the Feldenkrais method, where I was trained to a very high level how to guide a group of people or one person into their body, into the environment, into their joints, into their movement patterns, into their orientation with the world, into their sensory organs. And then what I've done, Curtis, is I've taken the theories of SE and the theories of Kathy Kane's work, and also some of the practices, and I'm teaching it to you as if I was working with someone one-on-one. One piece of history, if you're new to me, I was in private practice for a very long time. I have been working with humans one-on-one since 1997. And it was only about 5 years ago that I really stopped my private practice, because I realized it wasn't enough for someone to see me once a week for an hour. And that was the rare person who had the financial capacity to see me every week at, $210 for one session. It was just not feasible for a lot of people. And so I started taking the theory, I started creating homework lessons through audio for my clients, and one thing led to another. And now we have these very, very sophisticated, high level teaching curriculums that is SmartBody SmartMind. So that's how that evolved in a very quick way of describing it. I do have other videos where I talk about, why I brought my work online, why SmartBody SmartMind is actually very good for those with early and developmental trauma. The quick answer is it gives a person the ability to go at their own pace, because a lot of people come into private session for an hour, but all their system can handle is 5 minutes. I'm not over exaggerating. Their system has such low capacity. There's so much dysregulation that they are like not able to stay in their skin for more than 5 minutes, let alone with another person who's essentially a stranger, who essentially, while they know theoretically they're safe, they're not sure. So when you are at home, and again, granted, your home life is fairly safe and you have a roof over your head and electricity and all those things, you can really titrate and slow down the learning so that your system is only getting what it can handle and what it can digest. And then you take time to integrate that. So that is a very kind of quick way of describing these methodologies. I would say the Feldenkrais method is one of, if not the best ways to reteach a person how to learn. And that is another part that really gets into the program and the work. All right. So someone just asked, I bought the 21-day course, and how is SBSM different from the 21-day course? So I've already answered this question. So what I would encourage you to do is to go back and listen to this. There is also an FAQ page that is quite extensive, and it has the differences between the 21-day and SBSM. They complement each other. And, to quickly say this, SmartBody SmartMind just has way more muscle. It has way more practices. It has way more interaction, and it has way more work that goes into the body and into the viscera, into the organs, and into the movement patterns. So there is no need to do the 21-day nervous system tune-up first. If anything, I always recommend to people, if you can do SmartBody SmartMind first, I do recommend it, because it is getting into these stress organ levels. It's getting into these levels of the body that trap, for many of us, the early trauma, the dysregulation. Again, 21 days is wonderful as a foundational start, but it is not getting into working with healthy aggression, working with shame, working with these layers of the body that I've already covered. So go back to the beginning of this if you've just tuned in, but also check out the FAQ page. Jessica asks a question. When I go in to join, it asks for permission and a signature. Does that mean after we submit that, we can't change our mind before the program begins? Yeah, so we do need you to agree to some terms, what you're getting. It's kind of that contract between you and myself and the company, my company. But we do have a 30-day return policy. So if you join and let's say you pay your tuition and you're in the course and you realize, I don't think this is for me, we give you a refund. And then that contract is null and void. If you sign that, I think I see what you're saying. When you go into the registration, there's a page where you have to scroll, read the terms, conditions, what you get, what the course is, what the course isn't. So I really encourage when you go there, everyone, to look at that. If you don't pay your tuition, that contract is not active, right? So it really is the payment and that exchange that facilitates that contract between you and my company. But if you want to dissolve that and pull out of the program, again, within 30 days of purchasing, you can do that. Is there any part of SBSM that can be applied for stressed family animal members? So, yes. And here's what I know. For those that don't know, I was raised by 2 veterinarians, and I literally grew up in an animal hospital. So this is a topic I know really well. When the humans in the house are stressed, when we have dysregulation, that impacts kids, but that also impacts the animals. Because they are, just as we are, they're very empathic. They want to connect with us because they're social creatures just like us. So what you will find perhaps is as you become more regulated, those animals become less stressed. Now, of course, let's just say you have a rescue animal, and that's what you're talking about. And so this cat or dog was abused, found, in a situation that was really poor and very traumatic, and they are skittish, right? They don't know how to soften, how to rest. They're anxious, which also occurs in cats and dogs, typically. Not so much animals in the wild, that's different, but domesticated animals have this trait. The more you are regulated and attuned to yourself, the more you can regulate and attune to that afraid animal. And you can talk to them telepathically through the work that I just was talking about around the stress organs, around the brainstem, around the gut. So when you touch them, if you're touching them with the intention of talking to their gut, their adrenals, their brainstem in the way that I teach you, this will shift their physiology. And I just know that because that's what happens when you're with these animals. So yes, this definitely can shift. Yes, all of the live calls happen on Zoom. Everything happens on Zoom. Kathleen says, I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, so I'm hoping this can also start to heal. From what we've seen, yes, it can. Again, rheumatoid arthritis is an autoimmune disorder. We have seen through the research that a lot of these disorders are linked to dysregulation in the nervous system. And in many ways, a lot of the autoimmune disorders are highly linked to us not taking care of ourselves, not knowing how to set boundaries, not knowing how to have healthy aggression, right? To be very strong in our life force energy. We seem to see this connection with these neurodegenerative conditions and autoimmune conditions like lupus, for example, MS, ALS. And this has been written before. There's even a study that said, why are all these folks being diagnosed with ALS so nice? Why are they so nice? And if we really look at this and we look at Gabor Mate's work, When the Body Says No, he talks about this niceness trait. And this comes out in these individuals who have these severe illnesses of the nervous system. In this case of rheumatoid arthritis, it's more inflammatory and within, the joints, for example. But it is the system in threat. It is the system not able to recover and repair. So the training calls, they start in March. They start in March. Kathleen asks, if we don't have someone to co-regulate with during the day, how can we learn to regulate on our own? We can. So this is this misnomer that we have to heal in relationship. That relationship can be to the earth, to our resources, to music, to art, to a pet, as someone just mentioned, animals. It can be to passerby in the street. So much co-regulation can occur in these little tiny interactions with complete strangers when we're at the grocery store. I work here in my home alone for most of the part. I do have a husband, but I don't see him very much during the day. Or if he's away, and if I'm feeling a little need to see someone, I don't actually call up a friend or visit someone. I'll just go to the local coffee shop, grab a coffee, grab a tea, say hello, and just feel that energy of people. Smile to a few people, help someone open up a door, right? That is co-regulating. It doesn't have to be with an intimate partner or with a friend. It can be in these little tiny interactions. Smiling at someone on the street who is interested in having someone smile to them can give you that feeling of co-regulation. It gives you that oxytocin hit, which is important. So know that there are ways that we can co-regulate and be with others in the world, be with other things in the world that doesn't require having someone living with us. Of course, that can be a wonderful way to do it, but it's not necessary. Someone just asked, will this help with addictions? We have seen many folks shift their addictions. Again, addiction, from what we've seen, is a need to soothe, a need to feel calmed, or for some people more energized, right? It depends on the kind of addiction, whether it's a stimulant or a depressant or an action or a behavior, because it isn't just food and substances, right? It can be exercise, it can be shopping, it can be scrolling, it could be mindless stuff that disconnects us from what we're feeling. So 100%, when we start to heal the regulation, we start to shift the need for these outside things to calm us down or bring us up. Catherine asks, is there any work in SBSM that addresses the heart? Yes, there is. There is this very specific exercise. I often don't talk about it because most people don't know this term, but there's an area that we work with and learn within the work of Kathy Kane and Stephen Terrell. This is the early trauma work called the mediastinum. The mediastinum, and it is like this covering and sheath that suspends that heart space area, that cavity. And so it can be in shock, it can be taut and tight, and we want to be good with it. We want to wake it up. We want to say hello. We want to give it comfort and intention and attention. You say, I feel that my arrhythmias come from the stress in the nervous system. Yes. Arrhythmias can definitely, these are heart abnormalities, can come from dysregulation in the nervous system. It isn't always an infection or something like that. This is something I experienced highly a couple of years ago when I was going through and opening up some layers in my own system and coming out of freeze. They even diagnosed me with a prolapse mitral valve, which is basically the valves of the heart not opening and closing properly. But it's just like the gut, right? When the gut is under dysregulation from the autonomic nervous system, it doesn't open and close properly. That's where heartburn comes in, right? the stomach lets acid up into the throat and it burns, it hurts. So I do always say, it's good to have these things checked by a doctor, a cardiologist. And from what I've heard and seen, a lot of these things are the system in kind of a chaotic, dysregulated state. And then the system isn't firing properly. The other thing that's interesting is the SA node, the sinoatrial node, which is on the heart, which is the pacemaker of our heart. It is governed by the portion of our parasympathetic nervous system that is in charge of social engagement. So this is part of that vagus nerve that can calm us and slow us down in a nice way. It governs the SA node, the pacemaker of the heart. This is why when we do have a connection with someone that we like and we care about, we might feel more at ease. This is what happens when the baby comes out and we connect with the baby and we are co-regulating with this newborn, immature nervous system that doesn't know how to self-regulate. When they feel us connect and we give them the sense of safety, it is teaching their nervous system how to wire up self-regulation through that heart. So 100%, this definitely can help with that. And I always like to say, just as I did, I went and got checked out. Yep, they diagnosed me with that, but I don't have any more problems. And I'd be interested to know, to go back and see if that is still there, because I haven't had any symptoms for quite a while now. That's my story, of course. So everybody's got to do what they need for themselves. William asked, I missed most of the 21-day nervous system tune-up because I was moving. I have time now. Can I take the next course? So the 21-day nervous system tune-up is always there for you. So you should have had a login and password, and there is a site that has all of the 21-day lessons. So you can start that up at any time. Or if you want to, of course, you can begin SmartBody SmartMind with us now. And just like the 21-day, all of the information, while we do drip feed the lessons over the course of time of the 12 weeks that we're about to go into, all of it remains alive and well on the program site. So a lot of people will say, I don't have time the first week of March. What if I get behind? Do not worry about that. There is no behind. You can catch up. You can start at the beginning. A lot of people will spend the first 3 months just on the 2 first weeks of content because that's all they want to do and that's all their body can handle, and that's perfect. So just don't be worried about not having enough time, not being able to attend the calls. While of course we would love you to attend the calls, it is not necessary. Okay. So I see a question about asking questions. So if you can't attend the live calls, that's okay. We have a general question thread, and we have threads for questions under every single lesson throughout the 10 modules within the 12 weeks. So you can ask a question at any time of the day, and our team, we are in there every single day, often twice, if not 3 times a day, answering your questions. So, you need to give it a little bit of time, but you pose a question. You have to write it out, of course, and our team gets back to you. So do not worry if you can't make the live Q&A calls. The live Q&A calls are curated, by the way. So you are not there being unmuted and asking questions in the chat. You submit the questions ahead of time, and then Seth curates the call so that we answer as many themes and as many questions as possible. All right. Interesting question from Luis. Is the brain a stress organ? No, it could be. So is the brain a stress organ? Is there a biological approach to stop the negative talk? Great question. So the brain in our world is actually an end organ. I'm going to say that one more time. The brain is an end organ. Now, of course, if someone were to take out my brain right now, I would die, right? If I had a massive injury to my brain, that wouldn't be good. Just like if you were to take out my digestive system, I would die. If you were to take out my bone marrow, I would die, right? You can cut off a limb. I'll probably survive. Granted, I get medical help. So our core organs that run this show of our body, of the human body, oddly, they are all end organs to our autonomic nervous system, because the autonomic nervous system is like this highway and byway of electricity. It's run through electricity. It zooms through, right? There's a reason why if you get a shiver, it goes through your body before you even know it's there, right? So the autonomic nervous system, it governs the fight, flight, and freeze responses, so survival, but it's also governing all these internal systems. So when we are stuck in a loop of fight, flight, and freeze, for some of us, it's from in utero. For some of us, it's transgenerationally from our parents, right? And then for some of us, it's from an event that occurred when we were young or at birth or a bunch of things. When the system is stuck in that fight, flight, freeze, this is really important. All these other internal systems, they kind of get put on the back burner because survival is the essential element of the human system. It's about survival, right? There's a reason when a person falls, they hold themselves up because the system doesn't want the head to crack or the upper neck to snap, because we do have a lot of processing up in the spinal cord, high spinal cord, and in the brain. But the brain is still an end organ. And the question that you had about self-talk, I did a video actually. If you look up, I think it was negative self-talk in my name, you'll find it. But negative self-talk gets started really early in life. When we are toxically shamed, when we're told that we're not good at anything, when that we're stupid, that we're just we're just useless and worthless from our parents. This would be toxic shame. The little person has trouble navigating that. And then this is where a lot of that self-talk that's negative can start. It also can start when we have so much sensation and so much overwhelm in our body, and we're not taught how to make sense of it, and we're not taught how to move it out. We start to ruminate on what we're feeling and what we're sensing. And if nobody is there to help us out of that intense sensation or intense pain or intense overwhelm or deep shutdown, the brain isn't going to get the signal that something's wrong in the system. So they do go hand in hand. And from what we've seen, as the regulation gets on board, as the body gets more on board, the mind and the thoughts do start to lessen. They do start to lessen, and you can pay attention to them better. And then when you can pay attention to the mind better, you can shift how those thoughts take shape, right? You can shift how those thoughts take shape. The title of the video, my team just popped it up, The Origin of Negative Thoughts. It's a really good video. It's a short video, but have a listen to that. All right. All right, everyone. I hope this has been useful and helpful. I will end with a couple things. So if you're watching this live or within the publishing of this recording, just a quick reminder, SmartBody SmartMind is open for registration today and tomorrow. So tomorrow is the 21st of February. Take some time today to look at the registration page. Look at that FAQ page. There's a lot of information there that might answer some questions that you didn't even know you had. So head over there. If you haven't listened or looked at some of our stories from our alum, that's another way to just tune into the breadth of how this work works. I do recommend listening to the alumni panel call. So on Friday, I think it was Friday, I did a call with 6 of our longstanding alum, all sorts of backgrounds, all sorts of things that they were healing, and all of them have had multiple shifts and changes as a result of this one curriculum, and of course, doing the curriculum. I do recommend that. On Saturday, I did a call specifically for healers, coaches, helpers. So if you work with people, If your scope of practice is helping others, teaching others, maybe you're a body worker, that one is for you because it shows how this work, when we get it into our system, it informs how we work with others. SBSM is not a certification program. There is no way you can get certified to do this work in 3 months. I'm going to be very strong with that one because there's a lot of quick courses out there that are promising that. So just know that this is not a certification course. I am in the midst of creating, researching, and developing that. So I'm hoping to have that out in a year or a year and a half. And then on Sunday, which was yesterday, we did a special call with my husband Seth and our colleague Janice, all on early trauma and developmental trauma, and how SmartBody SmartMind is very well suited for those who are living with this kind of trauma and dealing with the after effects of early and developmental trauma. So I know I just mentioned a lot of other calls. Maybe you don't need to watch those calls to make your decision, but it could be helpful. And even if you don't need those calls and you still are going to join, I still recommend watching them because there's a lot of good information and learning there. Thanks, everyone. Again, tomorrow is the last day for registration. If you have any questions about the logistics, payment, just email us, support@irenelyon.com. Please do not send me a direct message on Instagram or Facebook. I probably won't see it. So the best way to ask us a question in this period of time, 48 hours before registration closing, is via email. So support@irenelyon.com will answer your question, and maybe we will see you on the orientation call, which is our first official call this Thursday at 1 p.m. Thanks, everyone. Thanks to Jen for popping in links and answering questions. We will see you all later.